Will it all pass? Probably not. He's going to be still met with a number of legal battles. There will be some scenarios that he can't unilaterally make decisions on that would actually require a constitutional amendment.
Now, overnight, Donald Trump's Republicans took control of the House of Representatives in Washington. So that's both houses of Congress and the White House. And they did it fair and square, whether anyone likes it or not. Today, though, it's clearer than ever that a lot of people don't like it one bit. And Donald Trump couldn't care less. He turned campaigning into a performing art. And now, more than ever, he's turned the business of government into a performance too. Just days after his sensational victory last week, and still weeks before he formally moves back into the White House, his critics are calling the second Trump presidency a circus. It matters because President Trump may be a consummate showman, but he's about to become the most powerful politician on the planet, and for the second time. His decisions will touch every corner of the world. Things are about to change, and if his critics and enemies don't like it, as far as he's concerned, that's fine. Maybe even that's the point. His latest choices to join the cabinet. Ultra-loyalists, they send the message loud and clear. The president-elect has chosen as Attorney General a congressman who wants to see the agencies which investigated Donald Trump in the past brought under control, brought to heel, as he put it, whatever that takes. The country's chief law officer would also be a man who's been under investigation for using illicit drugs and sleeping with a 17-year-old girl. Tulsi Gabbard, the former congresswoman, once described as traitorous by a critic and accused of parroting Russian propaganda, is to be the director of national intelligence, the boss of the CIA. And the Senate's job is to vet and approve top appointments. But will more traditionalist Republican senators join with their opponents to block Donald Trump's most provocative cabinet choices? What do you think? Send me a text, send me a tweet. Tell me what you are thinking right now. So let's talk about that. President-elect Trump building that cabinet. A lot of people concerned, to put it mildly, about the appointments. Matt Gaetz, obviously now one of those. He's been nominated to be the next Attorney General. The former congressman from Florida, he's been quite a defender of Donald Trump during his numerous court cases. It turns out he will be the Attorney General of the United States, assuming the Senate in Capitol Hill decide that that's okay. Now, last year, a Republican senator, Mark Wayne Mullin, told CNN Matt Gaetz was not a good guy. Now, let's say hi to Sarah Baxter from the Mary Colvin Center for International Reporting, who joins us from stateside. Hello, Sarah.
Hi, John.
So here it is again, Sarah. Donald Trump, again, keen to make as big a political stir as possible in the shortest possible time.
Absolutely. Trump Unleashed is a real sight to behold, and he is delivering a big up yours to all his critics. He's not just owning the libs, which is the kind of thing that delights the MAGA crowd, but he's also owning the Republican establishment. He's got the power. He's got both houses of Congress, as you said, in his pocket now. He's got effective presidential immunity from the Supreme Court, thanks to all that wasteful lawfare by the Democrats. And he is now going about sticking it to the man and appointing who he likes. And he's basically got the power through the ballot box to behave like an autocrat. What more could he want?
Yeah, well, but the Senate Republicans, Sarah, they didn't seem to choose as their leader in the Senate the man that Donald Trump appeared to want most. Does that mean they're minded to be a bit more independent of Donald Trump this time round? And will they say no to at least some of these appointments?
Well, not for long. If you remember, they were all going to be impeaching Donald Trump after January 2020 until they weren't. And this was a little show of defiance in choosing John Thune, but they've already been accommodating to Trump's wishes, implying they might go along with the idea of a lot of recess appointments, which will take a long time to get vetted. So, whether they can block people they don't like or not remains moot. And also they are a bunch of people who talk big and then carry a small stick, whereas Donald Trump talks big and carries a large stick at the moment, and guess who's going to win?
I mean, going along with the Donald Trump idea of approving appointments by the recess appointment system and just nodding them through on the basis that, well, let's just do it the quick way, there's nobody around, that would go down very badly with a lot of people, wouldn't it? I mean, I've heard one of the senators, critical senators, say you might as well make the Senate redundant.
Yeah, they don't like it. Of course they don't like it. But when push comes to shove, senators have often done Trump's bidding, not least because the threats against them have already begun. There is a troll army out there willing to threaten and intimidate people and primary them at the next elections. So, and not all senators stood for re-election recently. You know, that's on a rolling basis. And we've seen already how people who resist MAGA on the Republican side find themselves out in the cold. Look at Liz Cheney.
Okay, what about Tulsi Gabbard, Sarah? What do you make of that one? Again, another one where jaws hit the floor. Tulsi Gabbard in the past, she's been accused by her critics of being far too friendly towards Putin and also towards the leader of Syria. And what's that going to mean for policy on Ukraine, for example, and relations with Putin?
Yeah, well, as director of the Marie Colvin Center, Marie Colvin was killed by President Assad's forces. I'm sort of none too pleased at the thought that Tulsi Gabbard, made friendly overtures to Assad a few years ago. Also, when Russia invaded Ukraine, she's from Ohio and declared that Ukraine should compromise in the spirit of aloha straight away as Russian tanks were rumbling towards Kyiv. And she is a bit of a conspiracist. A Russian television commentator has described her as our friend Tulsi, and even went as far as to suggest she was a Russian asset. That said, I think, you talked about Matt Gaetz at the Department of Justice, and you gave a very good example of what Matt Gaetz is like, really, and he does creep a lot of people out. Tulsi Gabbard is a former Democrat turned MAGA loyalist. Will she be as bad as everybody thinks? Maybe she could, but at the same time, we remember that when Russia invaded Ukraine, Joe Biden's administration was offering President Zelensky a plane ticket out, and he said, no thanks, we'd rather have arms. So not everything can be thrown against her, and who knows, maybe she'll learn something from actually looking at intelligence if she's got any open mind at all.
All right, Sarah Baxter, thank you. Now, I can get the thoughts of Amy Tarkanian now, who's a former chairwoman for the Republican Party in the state of Nevada. Hello to you, Amy. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Amy, tell me, what do you make then of the Trump team we're now seeing taking shape?
Well, it's not a surprise. I think he learned a very hard first round as president when he claimed he was going to drain the swamp, and he did anything but. And he was lambasted and actually wasn't allowed to move forward with the majority of his agenda at that point. Now that he has all three branches of the House on his side, I think really he could come in, swinging and pretty much just throw spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. Most likely, he's going to be able to get a majority of what he campaigned on, at least put on to the agenda item. Will it all pass? Probably not. He's going to be still met with a number of legal battles. There will be some scenarios that he can't unilaterally make decisions on that would actually require a constitutional amendment, which is also another uphill battle and almost impossible to get accomplished. So he has grandiose plans. I think it's obviously beneficial that all three houses are now led by Republicans. Will he be met by some of those Republicans who maybe aren't so thrilled with some of his choices with some fight? Probably a little bit. But we have now witnessed, I think, the overtaking of the Republican National Committee by loyalists, people who are viewed as Trump purists, all the way down to the state and county party level. If you step out of line, they quickly remove you. They do not want anyone to question their agenda, and they will steamroll right through you.
Of the appointments that we've heard, what about the latest two? Any that you would wish to see blocked? Amy, what about Matt Gaetz? And for example, he's a lawyer, but he worked for a small private practice. He's never been a prosecutor. He's talking now about abolishing, possibly, the FBI and all the other law enforcement federal agencies. What do you make about that?
Sure. Well, I've never met Representative, well, actually, he's not even a representative. As of yesterday, he resigned. And so he's pretty cocky and confident that he's going to be confirmed as the next Attorney General. This would allow then a special election to take place for his replacement in the state of Florida. And he's somebody who is more viewed as a flamethrower, somebody who's very toxic, arrogant. He had the ethics probe for a number of alleged scenarios that nobody would actually want to have as tied to them, being with a minor, dealing with sexual assault was the biggest one, and then of course drug usage. And since he strategically removed himself yesterday as being representative, it's now being reported that the House Ethics investigation will no longer be able to release the information because he no longer is under their jurisdiction. So it was strategic.
I mean, you can't say that Donald Trump has got some sort of hidden agenda here, can you? He said that he would come in. He said he wanted to go after his critics and his enemies, and he's got the people in place to do exactly that. It was all out there, and yet people voted for him. They elected him, including in your own state of Nevada, which was quite an important state. It's gone with Trump.
Right. And I was actually very surprised that Nevada went to Trump. I thought for sure it was going to go to Harris. And I thought that the rest of the federal positions would remain with their incumbents. And I was at least correct with those, just not with the top of the ticket. And I think President Trump should be counting his blessings every single day that the Democratic Party did such a terrible job with their campaigning. They wasted tremendous amounts of money on celebrity endorsements. They put up somebody who was incredibly weak, somebody who came across as maybe likable, but not knowledgeable on the issues, and didn't do a very good job at relaying what her plan was, what the agenda was. And so I think that allowed for Donald Trump to excel. The fact that the Biden-Harris administration has done such a terrible job at overseeing the illegal immigration situation, the fact that our inflation is still out of control. It doesn't matter which social issue you bring up, and that's what she was hyper-focused on. If you can't pay your bills, if you can't feed your kids, then that tends to overshadow every other issue.
I mean, you are a Republican, Amy, and you still are a Republican, I think. Are you worried about the future of your party? Are you worried about losing the traditional, the roots of the grand old party and turning it into basically a vehicle for Donald Trump? And do you think that process is now set and there's no going back?
It is set, and I do believe that there has been a massive undertaking of the Republican Party that we most likely, will it ever go back to what it was prior to Donald Trump entering the scene? I don't believe so. Will we still be able to move forward with differing opinions? That's what's most important and most concerning to me. I want to make sure that there are people across our party, whether if you're viewed as a more moderate, libertarian, conservative Republican, that there's still a seat at the table for differing opinions. And that's what I fear most.
So you will not be leaving the grand old party. You're not off to another party, or still less the Democrats. You're staying where you are.
Correct.
Okay.